Today on Dylan Talks Tone, we're going to do some fact versus fiction on old pickups versus new ones. How's it going? My name is Dylan, and this is Dylan Talks Tone. On this channel, we have over 300 videos. We talk all about guitar tech, guitar tone, how pickups work, how wiring works, effects, all kinds of stuff. If you are a guitar player or you're interested in this stuff at all, do me a favor and hit the subscribe button and hit the little bell next to it, and that way you will know the next time we come out with a cool video just like this one. So I've got a whole pile of pickup parts here because one of the things we do is actually we supply other pickup builders with parts so that they can make pickups, whether they're hobbyists or even bigger builders. And so this big shipment of stuff here is going out this morning, and it made me think there's a lot of discussion on Facebook groups and internet forums all the time about the difference between old pickups and new pickups, and that constant quest for like that old tone from the 40s and 50s, and how do we get it. And so we're going to talk today about three main components that kind of get lots of myths around them and a lot of like black magic and ooh around the actual components in the pickups and how much difference they make to the tone. First of all, let's talk about the bobbin itself. We're going to use the humbucker bobbin because it's kind of one of those ones that's the most a lot of voodoo around it. This is an ABS bobbin. This is a modern bobbin. Does the butyrate bobbin from the late 50s and early 60s make any difference in the tone at all based on the material that it is made out of? That is absolute fiction. When something is not magnetic at all, when it is not metal, there are metal things that aren't magnetic, like base plates and covers and stuff that can affect technicalities of the tone. But the bobbin being plastic, whether it's butyrate, which is like a cellulose material that was made in like the 1800s, or it's ABS that didn't come out until the late 40s and didn't really get commercialized until after these classic pickups were made. That's the only reason ABS wasn't used, is because nobody was using it for anything. So there's really no advantage of a butyrate bobbin over an ABS one. Now there is one thing that can make a difference. The dimension of the center of this is super key to the shape of the coil, and the shape of the coil is super key to the tone of the pickup. If you buy some bobbins from China or somewhere, or just off the internet at a random place, it's possible that the middle of this makes it to where the size of the coil is a little bit different than the vintage ones. In fact, vintage coils on old PAFs were 49.2 pole spacing, and most modern are 50 and 52. So they will sound a little bit different based on the dimension of the bobbin, but not the actual material of the bobbin itself. All right, let's talk about magnets. Magnets are also one of those things where people will say, I want to find some old magnets from the 50s. I want to find some, old vintage stuff to make my pickup sound exactly like they were from the 50s. Alnico magnets especially, so this is an Alnico 5 magnet, are made from aluminum, nickel, cobalt. There's some copper in there, and there's also some iron, okay? So, and the way they make it basically is it's powder that is basically compressed. And so, it's the Monday, Friday thing, right? Like, if somebody on a Friday threw an extra teaspoon of one metal and not the other, it's possible that the metal changed. And the thing about it is, the way they make magnets now is different. The technology that they have now to do it is different, and what that comes down to basically is a more pure magnet and actually more consistent. So if you make 1,000 of these, they're going to be closer in consistency than they were made in the 1950s. Does that make them better? We'll talk about that in a minute. There is a difference, but we'll talk about why it doesn't really matter in a minute. Number 3 that we want to talk about today is the coil wire itself. This is probably the main component of the pickup, right? Now there's about 20 different kinds of insulation that goes on top of copper wire that makes different coil wire these days. So I have 2 of them here. This is called Polysol and this is called plain enamel. The one that you're thinking of probably more so for vintage pickups is this plain enamel. It's purple as opposed to the gold. You know, you've seen it on vintage pickups before. Is old plain enamel wire different than new plain enamel wire? Yes, it is, because of two main reasons. Well, there's three main reasons actually. One is the annealing process that they use to squish the wire down to this, like this is 43 gauge, to this tiny, tiny, tiny gauge is different than it was in the old days. And it's also different from manufacturer to manufacturer. If you buy cheap wire off eBay somewhere, it's possible that the thickness of the wire is different here than it is here, or from one end of the roll to the other, which can give you an inconsistent pickup. Old pickups had less consistent annealing from one end to the other. That means the diameter of the wire could be different. It could vary along the way. The second thing about it, the pureness of the copper of new wire is actually more pure. There's less impurities in it. So the wire technically is actually better. The third thing about wire that is different is the actual insulation itself. This is plain enamel wire. But this plain enamel wire was not exactly the same as the wire made in the 1950s for one very important reason. There is no benzene in the insulation of this wire. That means that it will not kill you. So all those people that are looking for super vintagey wire from the 50s, there's benzene in the insulation. If you look at the EPA requirements on benzene and how dangerous it is, as a result, the insulation is a little bit different than the insulation on the wire that we see today, even though it looks the same color and feels kind of the same and everything. So what does this all mean? Why does really none of this actually matter? Well, let's think about one thing. The one thing that's been common across all of the facts about these various components is inconsistency. In the 1940s and 1950s, when they were making pickups, the wind counts were inconsistent. The coil shapes were inconsistent because of the tolerances of the machine. The thickness of the wire was inconsistent. The purity of the wire was inconsistent. The magnets were less consistent. Everything was less consistent than it is today. And people will say, well, that's really cool because, you know, the inconsistencies is what makes a guitar so cool. That can be true. The thing is that when somebody's trying to make the perfect pickup from the 1950s or get the perfect sound from the 1950s, what does that mean? Because you could take a guitar off the wall, it would sound one way, and then 10, 15 guitars later, it may sound a different way. So what are you trying to recreate? What are you shooting for? A moving target, basically. That's why none of it really matters. What really matters is find a sound that you like and play it. If you're a builder, find a sound that you like and recreate it to the best of your ability. All of the factors of how a pickup is made, the strength of the magnet, the shape of the coil, the type of the magnet, the type of the wire, everything is a factor to some tiny extent. And if one of those things is inconsistent from one to the next, your pickup's going to be inconsistent. That's why none of it matters. That's why new stuff is actually cooler, because it's more consistent and you can, as a pickup builder, be able to hit a mark more consistently. That's why we use this stuff here today. That's why we sell it to other pickup builders, because it's actually good. Same thing with like the hookup wire. There's all kinds of, we'll do a whole nother video on braided wire versus four conductor. It's a bunch of smoke. Anyway, if you have questions about how pickups are made, about what affects the tone, all that kind of stuff, do me a favor, put them in the comments below. We could go into further depth on our live show on Monday night at 9 p.m. because we could have more time to talk about this if you have more questions about it, and we can make more videos about this too. It's very, very interesting, but the main point is don't get hung up on any one little thing. Just find a sound that you like and play that sound. My name is Dylan. This is Dylan Talks Tone. If you like videos like this or want to know more about guitar stuff, like I said, hit that subscribe button, leave your questions in the comments, and we will make a video just for you.